Estimating sums and differences. The first way in which we can estimate sums and differences is rounding. We focus on rounding in section 1.1. Rounding is only approximate, close to the original. We practiced a method in which we find the number spot, we underline what we're dealing with, and then to the right of that, we look at that number. That was our circled number. And then if it was 5 or more, we raised the score. If it was 4 or less, we let it rest. So basically, if you look at the bottom of the slide, 126,965, if I'm rounding to the nearest thousand, I would underline the 6 and circle the 9 and round it up to 127,000. In the same way, 193,210, I would underline the 3, circle the 2. The 2 is not above 5, so I would let it rest. I would bring it down to a 0. So it would stay at 193. That is rounding. Here I have monetary numbers. $9.99 is rounded up to 10. The first example, 33,420,000. I want to round the 10 millions place, so I would look at the millions place. It's a 3 to the left of the comma, so I would actually drop it down. I would let it rest. I would drop it down to the 0. So it would be now 30 million. The Indian Ocean, 28,350,500. I'm looking at the millions place. That's an 8. So it's above a 5, so I would round it up to 30 million. Then I would add those two. Okay, so instead of rounding at the 10 millionths place, I am rounding at the millionths place. Front-end estimation is very similar, but we are not rounding. We are actually estimating. We are trying to bring it to a close calculation just by looking at the front numbers. So for the first example, remember, we are not rounding for front-end estimation. We have the Pacific Ocean, 64,186,300. What I'm going to be doing is, if you look at the first number, I'm just going to be adding those first numbers. So I'm going to be adding the 6 from the Pacific Ocean, the 3, and the 2. So I'm adding the 10 millionths places. Everything in the millionths place, okay, I am not adding. Okay, I'm not adding those numbers. So that is a front-end estimation. I did not round it. As you can see in the Indian Ocean, I did not round it up to 30 million. Okay, so front-end estimation, I am just looking at the first numbers, adding them together, giving a general estimation or close guess. Now, rounding is going to be a lot more accurate than this. Now, if I want to make my front-end estimation a little more accurate, instead of just adding the first numbers, I can go ahead, if you look at to the right of this, I can add the 10 millionths place and the millionths place. So instead of just doing the 6, I'm doing the 64, 33, 28, and 5, and I'm adding those. Now that makes it a little more accurate, because you can see that's a big jump between 110 million and 130 million. So again, front-end estimation, it is an estimation, trying to get as close as possible, but it is not as accurate as rounding. Okay, and remember, this is not rounding. If you look at example 2, the front end estimation at the 10 millionths place. I'm just subtracting the 2 from the 6, and I come up with 40 million. But if I want to make it more specific on the front estimation, I'm going to subtract the 28, which is the 10 millionths and the millionths place, from the 64. So that's a little more specific. Okay, if you try these for the front end estimation, you can see the examples in number 1. I'm not rounding here. Okay, I'm just looking at the front end. 3 plus 8 is 11,000. Okay, 3 plus 8 is 11. So because it's 3,000, 8,000, okay, 11,000. Number 2, you can see here that we have 6,815. If I was rounding to get a closer estimation, I would round the 6,815. That 8 is above 5, so that would turn that to a 7. But I'm not rounding here. I'm just looking at the front end. I'm just looking at the 6. Okay, I'm ignoring the 815. Now for the 495, there's no thousandths place. So 6 minus 0 equals 6,000. Now if I want to make it more accurate, instead of doing this, if I want to make it more accurate, instead of doing the thousandths place, I can go ahead and focus on the hundredths place and the thousandths place. So that's what I'm doing here for make it more accurate. Okay, you can see 3,496. I am not rounding the 96, that 9, I'm not rounding up to turn the 4 into a 5. I'm not doing that. So I'm just looking at the front end estimation. The 3 plus the 8 equals 11. The 4 plus the 0 equals 4. So here I have 11,400. I'm just adding the hundredths place and the thousandths place. For number 2, I'm doing the same thing. I'm making it more accurate. Okay, instead of just the thousandths place, I'm adding both the hundredths place and the thousandths place. That's all I'm doing. Okay, so your textbook, if you have any questions, please send me an email. But in your textbook, if it asks you to round, okay, to make it accurate, okay, you're going to go ahead and round. But if you're doing front end estimation, okay, you're going to just focus on the front numbers and you're not rounding. Hopefully that helps.